there I am on two screens. I'm here on Instagram and Facebook Live. On Facebook, I'm on the Painted Yogi. And I wanted to, good morning. I wanted to talk to you today about, I think, possibly one of the things that can be more instrumental in our inner liberation than we realize is being kind to our minds. So how do we practice being kind to our minds when it seems like our minds are the things that get us into the most trouble? Yeah, especially if you have a chronically worried or busy mind. Especially if you have a practice of meditation or yoga or any kind of insight practice where you're becoming more aware of your thinking. Hi, welcome. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Jillian, it's good to see you here. So it can be, it's like, well, if my mind, if when we have a insight practice, when we start to develop our awareness or consciousness around what we're thinking, I think it's really natural to start to make our minds an enemy. Yeah, you can call it making the ego your enemy, or, making the thoughts that we have in our mind wrong. And if we're not aware of this, we can really struggle internally inside of ourselves. So before we dive into just a really simple process for unhooking from being your own worst enemy and starting to tap into the deep well of peace and joy and unconditional well-being that lies within, we'll take a deep breath in through our nose. Exhale, sigh it out our mouth. Let's do two more like that. Breathing in. Exhale, let it go. And last one like that. Breathing in. Holding this one at the top of the inhale and sipping in a little bit more breath. And release. Good. And feeling yourself arrive. Allowing yourself to come into presence by really anchoring into your body. Like even as you're listening to this teaching, you can really be in your body as you're receiving whatever it is that you're needing to receive today. So really practicing being present as you're listening. This is sort of the background of the teaching, right? Is that as you're receiving this teaching, you can sort of sense, are you here or are you somewhere else? Hey, Miss B. Where's your mind? How's your heart? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling open? Are you feeling grateful? Are you feeling content? Like right now in this moment. And then checking in with your mind and noticing if your mind is here or maybe it's preoccupied with some other things that are going on for you. And then in the moment of awareness, we come into presence. Like we don't have to fix our hearts or our minds. We don't have to change it. We just want to be aware of it. And in that simple awareness, something happens. We can call that like an unhooking happens. And we get present with how we are. And it's from this place that we're setting ourselves up to really receive the most, not only from what I'm saying here, but from your life. So in any moment that you remember, prioritizing presence, checking in with your heart and your mind so that you can unhook from any preoccupations, and just allowing yourself to arrive as fully here as possible and then begin to engage in this moment will align you with that divine wisdom, universal consciousness or flow or God or whatever word you use to refer to that unconditional love and well-being that's always available only and ever here in this moment. And so as we're deepening into this expression of our true nature, of our most authentic self, which is really when we're the most happy, you know, that's why we're all doing any of this, really, is to connect more deeply to who we are and to express from that place. Not the limited you, not the small you, not your ego, though that's not the enemy, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But we're the most satisfied, the most connected, the most ourselves when we're not as hooked into our limitations that exist in our minds. So when we're living in our minds, we're only functioning out of a very small aspect of ourselves. We could say we're purely functioning from ego at that point. But when we're tapped into the sensations in the body, the breath as it's moving out, you know, being present with the sounds in the room, really engaged with what we're doing in this moment, then we arrive more fully in the heart of who we truly are. And then we start to feel more on purpose. We start to feel more connected. We start to feel like, yes, I'm home. And that's what it's all about. And then to express ourselves from that place. I mean, that's our journey, really. And sometimes what can seem to get in the way of that, and you know, you might even let me know if this is true for you, something that can get in the way of that, it can seem, is our minds, right? Our thinking. If you've ever taken a look at the thoughts that you have on a regular basis in your mind, you'll notice that most of it, and go ahead, feel free to say hi as you're coming in to Facebook or Instagram. Let me know that you're here. That would be awesome. One of the things that you'll notice pretty quickly is that your mind is up to some like not so friendly, you know, things. Like oftentimes our internal dialogue, the way we talk to ourselves, is quite critical. You ever notice that? You ever notice that you have this part of you, this part of your mind, this inner voice that can be quite harsh and judgmental? Hi, Samantha, welcome. Glad you're here. And it's, you know, seemingly always nagging you and berating you and criticizing you. Or you have that aspect of your mind, that voice within that's always trying to scare you, imagining the worst case scenarios, you know, and then you feel that panic or that anxiety as you know, move into that possibility of the worst thing that could happen, right? The whole body starts to react. And so, and the heart as well starts to respond. The mind is so powerful. And so it can be really tempting to turn on our own minds in a way, to be like aggressive with our own inner critic, with our own worried mind, with our own fear thinking. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but how's that working out for you? You know, oftentimes I work with, you know, clients will tell me that what they really want to do is get rid of their negative thinking, right? They want to get rid of it. They want to get rid of their worries, their worried mind, and the ways that they get hooked into worry. Or they want to get rid of their insecurities and the thoughts that fuel those insecurities, yes? And actually, if you've ever noticed that anything that you pitch yourself against, where did we come up with this idea of by doing this, that it would get better? Because actually, it just typically gets worse. And so the main heart of what I'm talking to you about today is being kind to your mind. How about starting to develop a relationship with that inner critic, with that fearful voice within you? Rather than running and hiding and trying to get rid of it, what if we started to relate to it from kindness? realizing that those old narratives, those old tapes, those scary thoughts, those critical, harsh, judgmental thoughts actually come from a deeply wounded place within you that's just waiting for you to arrive and meet it with kindness and with clear seeing. So you might reflect right now, how do you relate to that voice within your head, within your mind, or those many voices actually? There's not just one. We got a lot of them, yeah? How do you relate to it? Do you relate to it with kindness, or do you relate to it like, do you ignore it? I do this sometimes. I deny it. Like a worry thought comes up and I just, I don't want to see it. So I just sort of shut it down in some way, you know? Worry is an old friend of mine. I used to worry chronically and compulsively as a child to alleviate my sense of gloom and doom, my feeling that I didn't quite fit in, my feeling that something bad was going to happen just around the corner. You know, it's my way of dealing with a challenging and inconsistent upbringing, was to worry. It actually served me at one time in my life. It made me feel like I had some agency, some control. I mean, that was actually something I developed as a deep feeling of love for myself. Yeah? So what if these things that you hate, you know, these aspects of your mind that seem to get in the way, what if it was actually, it came from a place within you that was deeply wounded and actually, you know, isn't needed anymore, right? Worrying anymore doesn't help me. And so when I start to notice my worry habit kicking in, there's a few things I do, and you can do this as well, right? Start to get to know this voice within you and address it. Even talk to yourself, like out loud or in your journal. What are you worried about? Like, how can I help? It's going to be okay. What is it? You can even like, what is it that this worry in you, started happening yesterday, and I dialogued with it. I was like, okay, you know, how can I help? You know, what is it that, you know, what is it that you need? I asked my worry. And one of the things my worry needed was a certain level of preparation. And so I did, you know, I prepared for my week. And this is how, when we start to turn towards these more difficult aspects of our mind, they can actually serve to grow us and to help us be, you know, as amazing in our life that we deeply desire to be. And so your mind is not your enemy. Just like anything else, when we make something an enemy, it kicks you in the ass. It actually creates more challenge for you, yes? All of your thoughts, a lot of them negative, a lot of them based on old fears and stories. You don't need to believe them. You want to start to relate to them. When a child tells you there's a monster in their room, likely you don't believe them, right? But if you're skillful, you don't spend a lot of time trying to convince them otherwise, because that's denying their experience, and it never works well. It still doesn't work well with you. You know, you got these little parts of you that are asking for your attention. They might be communicating to you by scaring you or being really harsh and critical. Take your seat. You know, be the queen, be the king. Like, take your royal seat and start to relate to those parts of you rather than fight them as if they're true or push them away as if they're true, right? We get sticky when we're believing it. But if we're relating to it from kindness, guess what? I'm not believing it anymore. I'm actually starting to, it's like a child, again, who thinks there's a monster in the closet. It's like, I can hear you, and let me, you know, try to address this fear in a way that feels supportive and soothing to you. But in no way in that interaction am I believing the child's story or narrative. And at the same time, I'm relating to that child in a caring and respectful manner. Like, If you have kids, you know what I'm talking about. And you know you've done both. You've tried to like convince them that there's no monster, and you've tried to, you know, you've gone through denial, you've gone through, you know, trying to attack or fight it, you know, in whatever way you've done, and it never works. What does work is this middle way that I'm outlining here. Stop engaging in the content as if it were truth, and instead start to back up and relate to it with kindness. Start to take care of yourself in that way. And start to journal and jot down, you know, the fears, the worries, the concerns that your own mind is coming up with, especially if you get triggered. And then rather than believing the content to be true, start to relate to it with from kindness, as if this were an aspect of you, like a you know, like a scared child, because that's what it actually is. And then notice how shifting your relationship to your own sometimes troubled thinking actually serves to deepen you into a greater presence and a deeper sense of mastery. So I hope that serves you today. Please like and share this if it did. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have an amazing day. All right? Sending you so much love and many, many blessings. Namaste.